Jackson, a former state banking commissioner, has known McDougal for years.
I think he was held in high esteem by the people of Arkansas. He was perceived as a rising star.
McDougal and Clinton met when they were both working for Arkansas's political godfather, Senator William Fulbright. That was 1968.
We were pals from the start. But let me say this, it's very easy to be Bill's pals. A lot of people are.
With McDougal's success in business, he and his wife Susan appeared rich and connected. Susan became a local television celebrity, promoting their land deals.
It's always been the dream of most Americans to know the pride of ownership and the solid feeling of your own land under your feet.
Arkansas, as you'll hear often, is a place where politics and business often become intertwined. Jim McDougal, for instance, had business deals with a number of Arkansas politicians, including Senator Fulbright.
Everybody knows everybody, and everybody does business with everybody.
John Starr of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette.
If you're in a position of power and influence, there are always people around who want to let you in on deals that will make you rich.
In that environment, Jim McDougal approached Bill and Hillary Clinton about a land deal on the White River that could make them some money. ABC's Mark Potter takes the story from there.
It was 230 acres on the bluffs overlooking the river that the Clintons and McDougals would buy and call Whitewater Estates. They struck the deal at the peak of the 1970s land boom, thinking they had a great chance to make money selling lots for vacation and retirement homes. The Clintons were told about the property by James McDougal.
And I think I saw Bill and Hillary down at the Black Eyed Pea, restaurant. I said, I got this piece of land up on the White River I'm going to buy. You want to go in with me?
Knowing how successful McDougal had been with other ventures, the Clintons signed on.
Well, it was an investment. I was hoping, obviously, like everybody who puts up money in a deal, I was hoping we'd make money.
Documents obtained by ABC News show the Clintons and McDougals bought the Whitewater property for $203,000. In Little Rock, they got a $20,000 loan for the down payment, which was secured only by a promise to pay it back. The $183,000 mortgage came from a bank in Flippin, Arkansas, using the land itself as collateral. None of the investors put any of their own money down. Steve Sanders was one of the members of the bank board that approved the mortgage.
I think the worthiness of the loan was really based on McDougal and McDougal's assets. I think really the fact that Bill was on it, that wasn't a key point.
In 1978, Clinton himself was involved in his first gubernatorial campaign, which would result in his election. On August 3rd of that year, the clerks at the Marion County Courthouse in Yellville, Arkansas, filed the Whitewater mortgage and deed papers. Records also show that a year later, in June of 1979, the Clintons and McDougals formed the Whitewater Development Corporation to manage and sell the land. The corporation took control of the property, but the four partners remained personally liable for the entire mortgage. James McDougal was the president of Whitewater, Susan McDougal was the secretary, and the Clintons were 50% owners. The new owners built a 3-mile road through the thick forest and commissioned surveys, which divided Whitewater Estates into 44 lots, most of them about 5 acres each. The properties were now ready for sale. It was 1980, a key year for James McDougal in Kingston, Arkansas, where he bought the local bank. In December of that year, Whitewater had sold only a few lots and needed money. So Hillary Clinton took out a $30,000 personal loan at McDougal's new bank, gave the money to Whitewater, and built this model home on Lot 13.
And so it was merely to help sales that we built the house. I have done that since then, just one house.
But 1980 was not a good political year for Bill Clinton, who lost his run for re-election.
Hillary and I have shed a few tears for our loss of last evening.
But their investment in Whitewater was beginning to look good as sales took off. By the end of 1982, nearly half the lots had been sold, and the corporation had a healthy cash flow. Then, rising interest rates took their toll and collapsed the real estate market. Realtor Chris Wade had first shown the land to McDougal and had later helped to sell the lots. He says they quickly sold the riverfront land, but remembers that when interest rates climbed past 20%, they were out of luck. because no one wanted the remaining lots in the back.
The property was desirable, still is. It's a beautiful piece of property. There just wasn't anybody around to buy it.
1982 was the year that Bill Clinton's political fortunes turned around. By a solid margin, he was re-elected governor. And his real estate partner, James McDougal, was also doing well. He acquired a new investment that was to play an important role in the land deal, a financially troubled savings and loan called Madison Guarantee. By 1984, the Whitewater Development Corporation had opened a checking account at McDougal's Savings and Loan. But there was a problem. With mortgage payments due and not enough money coming in anymore, the corporation couldn't meet its bills. To pay everything off, McDougal says he had to take money out of his own pocket and never asked the Clintons for help.
I considered it my responsibility because I had gotten them into it, and I didn't ask them to make a contribution. Didn't want them to know we were having difficulty.
In fact, McDougal says he rarely talked to the Clintons about the land deal's finances. Records obtained by ABC News show that in one instance, in 1984, the Whitewater account at Madison Guarantee was used to make an $18,000 mortgage payment that McDougal says was his money.
I felt really embarrassed that I'd gotten them into it. And I was trying to carry the load because I was embarrassed and didn't want them to suffer.
In fact, Whitewater was suffering badly. Hardly any more lots had been sold, and in 1985, McDougal decided Whitewater needed to get what it could out of the land and sold the remaining 24 lots to realtor Chris Wade. In an unusual exchange, Wade gave McDougal this Piper Seminole airplane, which he said was worth more than $30,000, and also agreed to pay off $35,000 of the Whitewater mortgage. In his view, Wade was putting up nearly $70,000, more than 2/3 of the outstanding mortgage. And to the people involved in the trade, it wasn't all that odd.
This isn't the House of Morgan, or Shearston or whatever. This is country folks trading mules,
But that didn't work either. And like so many other land developments then, Whitewater failed.
So the fact that Whitewater development did not succeed is not atypical, it's typical.
But unlike many other land ventures, Whitewater did not declare bankruptcy, even though it still lost a lot of money, an estimated $160,000. The corporation continued to exist and to be involved with the property because of the outstanding loans and mortgages. The Clintons finally sold their interest in Whitewater to McDougal for $1,000 in 1992. Mark Potter, ABC News, on the White River.
So much for the lucrative return which the Clintons had hoped they would get from their Whitewater investment. When we come back, why it is that Whitewater still haunts the Clintons today. Investigation of the Whitewater affair, there is something more to know about James McDougal and the go-go Madison Guarantee Savings and Loan that he created in the early 1980s. When Madison crashed in 1989, the taxpayer took a $60 million bath. McDougal's history is also important because in the investigation of the Clintons, McDougal's credibility is on the line. It has not been easy for Jim McDougal since his S&L crashed. He was indicted for bank fraud, though later found not guilty. He lost his wife and he suffered a nervous breakdown. Today, he doesn't have a job.
Would you have done anything different?
I'd have gotten out of it quicker if I'd known how pleasant it was to be out of it.
Today, Jim McDougal, the high flyer behind the Whitewater land deal, is broke. When he dines out now, it's at the local Western Sizzlin' in Arkadelphia.
There's no difference in feeling if you have the basic necessities, which is all I'm interested in, food, clothing, and shelter.
And if people recognize him at all, it is only because of the notoriety that Whitewater has brought him.
Wait, I gotta have this signed now. You need to autograph that for me.
I know.
And today, Jim McDougal is the target of several ongoing federal investigations. As we all know, life would take a very much different course for Bill Clinton, onwards and certainly upwards. But the arcane details of the Whitewater affair would come back to haunt him in a very public way as he ran for the White House. Here's ABC's Jim Wooten.
Sunday, March 8, 1992.
God bless you all. Bye-bye.
As Clinton takes his nearly nonstop campaign to Southern voters, Whitewater makes its national debut on page 1 of the New York Times. Introduced to the country as an ethically suspect, sweetheart deal for the Clintons. Potentially large profits for minimal risk, possible conflicts of interest. Looking for votes in Texas, the governor responds immediately.
I know we lost over $25,000 on this deal. Never made a penny on it.
That would become the Clintons' bottom line. Because they lost money, the deal was clean. And to prove it, the governor's friend, Denver lawyer James Lyons, would hire an outside accounting firm to examine the records and issue a public review. In late March, that report, the Lyons report, put the Clintons' Whitewater losses not at $25,000, but nearly 3 times that amount, $68,900. But an extensive review of the Lyons report by ABC News reveals significant discrepancies. For example, the President and Mrs. Clinton say that on the 2nd of February, 1982, you'll recall he was no longer governor then, but was running again, they put $20,744 of their own money into Whitewater, a cash contribution counted in the Lyons report as a part of their losses, and backed up, they say, with a canceled check. But take a look at that check obtained by ABC News. The date matches, and so does the amount, $20,744.65. But it's written not to Whitewater, but to McDougal's Bank in Kingston as repayment of loan. And McDougal says that's exactly what it was.
That had no connection whatsoever to the corporation.
It was, he says, the repayment of a loan he had approved for Mr. Clinton in 1981 after his unsuccessful 1980 campaign. Nothing at all to do with Whitewater.
He borrowed that to Bank of Kingston as a campaign loan. It was his personal loan.
I believe it was in May of '81.
That's correct. And Kingston banker Gary Bunch recalls making the loan, though he didn't know what the money was for.
Oh, I remember it was just a personal loan.
If he's right, and McDougal is right, then this $20,744.65 cannot be counted as part of the Clintons' Whitewater losses, as they claim. And there are other discrepancies. For example, remember those early days of Whitewater, those first couple of years when the Clintons and McDougals bought the land with borrowed money and not a dollar of their own? The Clintons claim that in the first year, 1978, they paid $10,130 in interest on Whitewater's debts, another $12,000 in '79 and $13,000 in 1980. The White House says the Clintons have canceled checks for those payments, but McDougal says he remembers only that last payment for $13,000 in 1980. And that, he says, was the only cash the Clintons ever put in Whitewater. The rest came from him.
The company was in distress. It was my idea, and I thought I ought to put up the money.
If McDougal is right, the Clintons should not have claimed the first 2 interest payments on their income taxes, which they did. Moreover, if McDougal is right, the Clintons did not lose as much money as they claim. Federal investigators are also looking at how several other loans the Clintons took were repaid, and whether any federally insured depositors' money was diverted from McDougal's savings and loan into Whitewater. First, remember that $20,000 Mr. Clinton and McDougal borrowed in 1978 from Union National Bank, the original down payment on the Whitewater land? According to Don Denton, a Union National Bank officer at the time, Mr. Clinton did not repay his share of that debt. Instead, it was repaid in 1980 with money from another loan to McDougal and to Jim Guy Tucker, now the governor of Arkansas. Tucker said today, if that happened, he knew nothing about it. In any case, if Denton is right, that loan repayment in Mr. Clinton's behalf should have been reported on his taxes as income for him. It wasn't. And remember the $30,000 Mrs. Clinton borrowed in 1980 to build a model home for Whitewater? At first, when business was good, the company made most of the payments on that loan from the sale of the lots. But investigators are now looking at how the payments were made in later years when money was scarce and the lots were not selling. Of special interest is this check stub from the Whitewater account obtained by ABC News. It shows a payment of $7,322 on Mrs. Clinton's loan in 1985. But there was no money in the account, so the check was covered with a deposit from Madison Marketing, a company owned by McDougal and which, according to this federal bank report, derived all of its income from his savings and loan. If federal investigators establish that that specific payment on Mrs. Clinton's loan was made with funds from McDougal's S&L, they may conclude that federal laws were broken. The question is, how much did the Clintons know about that? In fact, how much did the Clintons know about any of this? Jim Wooten, ABC News, Washington.
When all is said and done, that is the question which has caused the Clintons so much trouble. If they are as blameless as they declare, they've not made it easy for the country to accept their declarations at face value. And here's an example why. When their friend and White House counsel Vincent Foster committed suicide last summer, other White House staff working for the President and the First Lady went into Foster's office and took away a box full of documents, including the Whitewater file. The public didn't learn about this for several months. It is this kind of thing which finally forced the President to accept a special counsel, Robert Fisk.
I would certainly expect that before this investigation is over that I would question both the President and the First Lady, and that it would be under oath.
Mr. Fisk now has the authority to investigate the Whitewater affair from start to finish. We'll be right back. Good night.